Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that all the legal wrangling over the UK's departure from the European Union is over. The Supreme Court brought an end to the long-running Brexit case on Tuesday with its judgment that only Parliament, not ministers, can trigger Article 50, the formal method of kicking off Brexit negotiations. But as of today, a new legal challenge is underway. A case has been filed with the Irish High Court in Dublin about whether Article 50 is reversible or, as some people say, revocable. In other words, you can turn it back. The litigants are hoping that the case will be referred to the European Court of Justice, the ECJ, and the judges there will rule that even after Article 50 has been triggered, we could, in theory, keep with me, don't lose attention, just change our mind and maybe even decide to stay in the EU after all. When the Secretary of State for exiting the EU, David Davis, appeared in front of the Brexit Select Committee last month, he said that even he didn't know whether Article 50 could be revoked.
As recently as October, at least one head of government was saying, how are you going to change it? How are you going to reverse this? How are you going to reverse this? And many of the others still feel it can't really happen. So that's partly the sort of mindset that's still the end of is there now. As we get further into this, once we've served the Article 50 letter, one of the virtues of the Article 50 process is it sets you on way. You know, it's very, very difficult to see it being revoked. We don't intend to revoke it. It may not be revocable. I don't know. But so that's the route we're going down. And I expect, at least at that point, people's calculation will change from how can we make them change their minds to how do we best deal with this.
We're joined now by Julian Maughan. He's one of the people bringing the case in Dublin, and by Gunnar Beck from Lawyers for Britain. That's a pro-Brexit campaign group. Welcome to you both. I think one thing the viewers will want to know above, first of all, why Dublin?
Because the essence of the complaint is that by excluding the United Kingdom from council meetings in advance of serving Article 50 notice, the United Kingdom has been disadvantaged. That's a complaint that can only be taken in the courts of the countries that have disadvantaged the United Kingdom. So you're looking at the remaining 27 courts, and of those, Ireland is the natural choice, similar legal system, English. Same operating language, and also Irish courts are very accustomed to dealing with the Court of Justice in Luxembourg. All
right, that explains Dublin. What is it you hope to establish?
Well, look, this is a very, very, very uncertain world that we live in. Donald Trump has come in. He's changing everything. He's talking about NATO being obsolete. We're going to see a whole new trade arrangement.
Let me accept the uncertain bit.
Yeah.
What is it you're hoping to achieve?
What I want is a free option for the United Kingdom on us deciding, with the benefit of further evidence, that remaining is the right thing for the country.
That therefore the government could change its mind in the process of the Article 50 negotiations?
Well, the government, as always, will be led by what the electorate wants it to do. And if the electorate starts to change its views about the wisdom of Brexit, then the government will follow. There are many, many MPs who accept that the result of the referendum requires that we trigger Article 50, but who still have doubts about the wisdom of that course. And if they hear loud and strong from their voters that that's the right thing to do, they will, I'm sure, put pressure on the government.
And Gunnar Beck, the issue of dispute here is whether that would be legal or not. Does it not make sense to establish the legality of that?
Well, the fact of the matter is that at present we simply haven't got a dispute. The British public have voted to leave the European Union. The Supreme Court has stated that it is up to Parliament, indeed the onus is upon Parliament, to confirm that vote. Once that has happened, Article 50 is entirely clear that the United Kingdom will notify the Council of its intention to withdraw.
But do you believe, I understand all that, that's the process and we've covered that. Do you believe Article 50 is irrevocable or not?
The text is quite clear. It proceeds on the assumption that when a country notifies its intention to withdraw, it means what it says.
Right, so you think it is irrevocable?
Well, it proceeds on the assumption that a country means what it says, just as when any country applies to join the European Union, negotiations for accession are conducted on the basis that that country too means what it says.
All right, but Lord Kerr, who's the man who actually is credited with writing Article 50, he told the BBC Article 50 is not irrevocable. If a country were to decide, actually, we don't want to leave after all, everybody would be very cross about it, but legally they couldn't insist that you leave.
Well, Article 50 doesn't provide any support for that view, and in any event, the issue hasn't arisen. I think legally speaking, the situation is entirely clear. The Court of Justice has ruled more than 30 years ago that it will not accept references on entirely hypothetical questions. The question or not whether the UK wants to reassess its intention to withdraw hasn't arisen yet. We haven't got a dispute. The European Court of Justice shouldn't even look at that.
All right, no, I understand that's your point. Julian Mom, the judgment in the Supreme Court of Article 50, it said Article 50 cannot be given in qualified or conditional terms, and that once given, it cannot be withdrawn. That would seem to be something of an exocet through your case, is it not?
That would be a powerful exocet if it was a good point, but it's not a good point, because if you look at...
You're saying the Supreme Court's not made a good point?
No, I'm saying that whoever has given you that quote has given you a bad point. If you look at paragraph...
It's given me a bad point.
It has given me, I'm going to explain to you why.
Yep.
If you look at paragraph 26 of the Supreme Court decision, it says very clearly, we are not deciding whether Article 50 is revocable. The government and the claimants both found it politically convenient to proceed on the assumption that it was, but we are not deciding the point. So they say very explicitly, no exocet.
What do you make of this, Rachel?
I think it's great that it's happening. I mean, it's one thing to accept the democratic vote, and I think, you know, that we can agree that needs to, you know, Parliament needs to respect the democratic wishes of the referendum, but it does raise all kinds of constitutional questions, and I think it's great that we have a system that works, that we have checks and balances on Parliament that work. That's a good thing. We should be celebrating that.
Peter?
I think it's a diversion. I think that the serious opponents of our departure from the European Union really need to start thinking in a more in a broader way. I don't want to offer them any particular advice. I'm not. I don't want to help them, but it would seem to me that they have a much better prospect of frustrating our departure from the European Union by salami slicing it so much during the passage through negotiations in Parliament that what we end up with is that we move from being as we are now, half out of the European Union to being half in it, which would seem to me to be the most likely result. But these legal diversions just seem to me to be trading on the success of the Supreme Court case, which was a notable success, but which didn't actually make much difference to the outcome of events, and trying to divert us from the centre of this, which is the negotiations between this country and the European Union, and what Parliament then does with those negotiations, which still seems to me to be a great deal of doubt.
Do you really think there's a cat's chance in hell that the government will change its mind?
The government is a political creature. If people change their minds, the government will change its mind. I think that is a very, very real possibility. Look, I recognise what the political mood is today. I'm not stupid. I read the papers. I listen to you. I watch daily politics religiously, of course.
Seriously deluded, isn't it?
But I also believe that the world is changing fast. I believe that there is a lot of evidence of what Brexit means that we are still yet to see. We don't even have a white paper. And I do think that it is very, very, very plausible that people will revise their views, and if they do, the government will follow. Is
it your view that the Dublin High Court is likely to pass this to the European Court, or do you feel the Dublin Court will throw it out?
Well, I think that's for the Dublin Court to decide. It should throw it out. I think the law is quite clear on that. We have a hypothetical question. It may be interesting, but a hypothetical question should not be referred. The matter is quite simple.
Can we all come to Dublin and watch this unfold?
I'll buy you a pint, Andrew.
Very well. I thought you were going to buy my ticket, because I can assure you the BBC won't. Thanks to both of you.